this story really bothered me this morning. I'm putting on the screen a picture of 5-year-old Syrian child who was last night rescued from his home. He was pulled from the rubble after his home was hit by an airstrike. He was with his mother, his father, his sister, and brother. Amazingly, all of them survived. But the young boy's name is Omran, and it is a miracle that they survived. But the picture itself really puts it in context in terms of what war really looks like. And the truth of the matter is, this is something that happens probably multiple times every day. And I saw a tweet earlier today from someone who was speaking with a doctor in the region who was really shocked by the amount of attention that this has gotten from the United States. And he wondered, why are we so shocked by this image? Because their bodies being pulled out of rubble all day long, every day. And this is true. And in this case, in his hometown of Aleppo, 19,000 people have been killed during the course of this war. 4,500, almost 4,600 of that 19,000 have been children. I want you to just process that for a second. And as we look at this image, I'm going to put it back on your screen. As we look at that image, realize, as graphic and shell-shocked, and he's obviously in shock. He's obviously doesn't really know what's going on, and he's not even crying. And you see how terrifying this picture is and how it brings you to tears if you just dare for a second to be empathetic and place yourself in the shoes of his family and to think, what if that was your child? If you go that far, it breaks your heart. But the reality of it is that he and his family were lucky. And as harsh as that may seem, 19,000 people in his city have been killed. 4,500 of them, 4,600 of them were children. Between 1.5 to 2 million people still live in this city that's under siege. Many have left, many have tried to escape, and leaving is not exactly the most viable option. Not only because some people don't have the resources to escape, but because of the danger, how difficult it is to escape. And to be fair to the audience, just a warning, I am going to share one image in particular that is very heart-wrenching. So if you're watching and you don't want to see it, this might be the time to cut it off. I'm just doing that because I would want that for myself. The first thing I'm going to put up is a cartoon of this young boy and the other migrant boy from Greece who died on his way trying to escape. I'm sorry, not from Greece, but he died on the shores of Greece trying to escape what was happening. So this is their choices, right? If you stay, you stand the risk of dying in a bomb attack, in a strike. And this kid survived, man. That's I hope, I just hope that they survive it all. This particular family, right? Because if you look at the numbers of people who are being killed, it's a possibility that they may have survived this one and won't survive the next one. But these are their options. They stay and they live under constant fear of death, or they risk the chance of death and try to escape. So the other image I'm going to put on the screen, I want to talk in terms of culturally here. In the United States, we have a tendency to forget really quickly the tragedies that surround us. And I think, actually, let me correct myself, not the tragedies that surround us, because if they surrounded us, maybe we would have more compassion. But we're so far removed from these tragedies that we so easily forget. But on the screen now is the boy, the little Syrian boy, 3-year-old Syrian boy who died along with other members of his family trying to escape. Let me get that off the screen. Three-year-old Alain Kurdi. And the problem is that we almost become voyeuristic in the sense that we have the ability and the freedom to observe these things from a safe distance, and we temporarily empathize and we try to identify with that pain and we speak out about it. But then, you know, the next episode of The Walking Dead comes on and we shift gears. Or X Factor, I don't know if that's even a thing anymore. I don't really, The Voice or whatever comes on, and we quickly forget those images. And the thing that we don't have any connection to is how we as individuals are connected to this. And I'm not saying any of this as though I have a solution at all. I'm not saying any of this as though I'm less guilty of it than the next person. But I am saying this to say that the cost of war is just so high that I don't want to sully this conversation with profanity, but when you think about the cost of war, to every ambitious leader, to every person that's a religious zealot, to every person that wants to expand their empire, for every reason we have war. I can't even finish the sentence because I don't think it's going to be appropriate to say in this context, but there's no reason valid enough for wars that kill our children. And I think here's the problem, right? As progressives and people on the left, there are occasions where you have no choice but to go to war, right? There are occasions where you have no choice but to defend the peace. But we're growing up in a generation where war in some context is a luxury to protect the people in power. War is just a means of expanding their ambitions. Because if you at least in so many contexts, in so many examples, when have we seen a war in our lifetime that in our generation that has been about the survival? And yes, somebody's going to bring me some examples. Please do. That has been about surviving and pushing back an existential threat. But far too often we see wars that are about protecting someone's political power or protecting someone's economic power or expanding their global reach and expanding their ambitions. And this is the cost. And then those who could do something about it We change the channel. And we see entire nations reduced to rubble. I mean, just take a minute and think. So as Americans, this speaks to American privilege that every single one of us has. We all have this American privilege that our kids, for the most part, saving some rare examples of areas that are so wrought with violence that their odds of survival are almost as slim as a child growing up in modern day Syria, like Chicago. You know, in Chicago, your chance of being killed by a gang member is high if you live in, it's very high if you live in certain regions, certain areas, right? But saving those pockets of America that are the great exception to the rest of the American experience, we are some privileged people. And I'm looking at this kid and I'm thinking, my son was in the living room, same age, playing a video game, getting ready to go to kindergarten, and not a worry in the world. But because of the ambitions and the geopolitics of a particular nation, this young boy, in his entire youth, has been war. His entire childhood to this point has been war. Hasn't had the chance to go to school. He's 5 years old. This civil war has been going on for at least his entire life. He does not have any of the luxuries that we have. And if you look at the graphic here, just a few years ago, he could have had the privilege of not growing up in a war-torn nation. But it's the ambitions of men. It's the desire to maintain power. It's the desire to expand power. It's the desire to erase groups of people that you hate. It's so many reasons that we pick up our arms and we're willing to kill somebody and to destroy an entire region. And at the end of the day, I think most of us would say it's not worth it. But then again, most of us are not in the position to make these kinds of decisions. And these kinds of decisions that are being made by a small group of people have the effect on so many millions, and hell, the rest of the world. It has an effect on us. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do other than to say, no, I'm not even going to say that. All right, 857-600-0518. I will say this. Let's not let the next episode of whatever we watch make us forget what's going on in another side of the world that very well could be our children. And then just think about over the last 5 years here in the United States, if we were engaged in a war here, how it would affect everything that we know. Man, we are so blessed and privileged to be able to just drive down a street without the fear of an airstrike or a drone bombing. All right. American privilege at its best.